Here we are again. Another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast where two guys watch movies thanks to a magical random algorithm button. And with me, as always, is the Hocus Pocus Witch to my Ursula the Sea Witch, Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn.
Just don't steal my voice. It'd be hard to do a podcast.
Yeah, well, don't ride in the vacuum. I think I've only seen Hocus Pocus once. Might have to watch it again.
It's cute.
It's got Bette Midler as a witch, so you know.
And Kathy and Jimmy.
And Sarah Jessica Parker.
There you go. There is our review.
Yep.
There are 3 witches in the movie.
Yep.
Speaking of witches, what did we watch this time?
We watched a little movie that no one's ever heard of. It's called Suspiria, directed by Dario Argento from the year of our Lord, 1977.
Yes, not the 2018 remake.
You could probably watch the Argento version like 1.5 times before you finish the 2018 version.
Yes. So before we get into that, what you watching?
Well, I don't know, Kyle. What are you watching?
Let's see. What did I watch the last couple of weeks here? I watched Widows. It was a heist movie that kept occasionally forgetting it was a heist movie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It kind of, every once in a while, just kind of like veered off, and I just got bored with it here and there.
I remember it had a great cast.
It does have a wonderful cast.
Viola Davis, I think, is one of the names I remember.
It doesn't seem focused enough. So, not a big recommendation. I also watched the 1987 film Dolls.
Was it about dogs?
Dolls.
Okay.
That is some people break down outside of a house in a storm, and they go in, and then like another guy who picked up a couple of punk rock girl hitchhikers, they also show up because they're stranded, and it's like an old couple that owns the house, and the guy's a doll maker, and then the dolls start killing people. So
that's nice.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times. It's fun. It's cheesy 80s horror.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Is the guy like the master of these? I'm not going to say puppets, so he's not like the puppet master.
The doll master?
The doll master?
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that.
Okay, so it's just like Puppet Master.
Kinda. It's cheesy. I recommend it if you like cheesy 80s horror. I watched Happy Death Day to You.
Was it happy?
Yes, very happy.
I still haven't seen either of them.
Okay, I really liked the first one. And it was one of those where the concept, it's like a horror version of Groundhog Day. And the way they ended...
So Groundhog Day?
Yeah, I guess
kind of horrifying, yeah. If you were stuck in it.
I mean, we got to see him die so many times.
So many times.
In so many different ways. But she has to figure out who her killer is, and in order to stop the day from recurring. And I didn't know how they were going to do a sequel, but I'll just say that if you like the first one, you'll enjoy the second one too. And it's there's a little more comedy to it and less horror, and more just like more about the characters and stuff. So it's a different kind of movie, but also the same because it's a repeating day again. But they made it work.
I assume in the third one, she goes back in time.
I'm guessing so. That has to be it.
Yes, if we're gonna follow the Evil Dead rules.
So yeah, I recommend that, especially if you enjoyed the first one. I also watched a movie called Blaze, directed by Ethan Hawke, about a country singer-songwriter that I'd never even heard of before, Blaze Foley or something like that.
I thought it was about Johnny Blaze, a.k.a. Ghost Rider. So,
no.
Well, one of the Ghost Riders. But
that would have been cool if they could combine those. No, this was
not I want a country western Ghost Rider. I'll bring Nicolas Cage back. He's got nothing to do.
It was an interesting little movie. Little biopic about this guy. Not much more to say than just a good, pleasant little biopic. I was sick for like a week of these 2 weeks since we last recorded, and when I stay home from work sick, there's something I always watch, and that's Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That's my comfort food. So 5 out of 5 stars. Go watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Did they defeat evil this time?
Every time, and it's glorious. It's one of my favorite movies. It's one of the best horror comedies ever. So go watch it.
Did it get a theatrical release?
It might have. I didn't actually know
If
it
it
existed
did-
until like a couple years after it came out.
If it did, it was in theaters for like a weekend.
Yeah.
It suffered from Snowpiercer syndrome, where like Snowpiercer was in the theater for like one weekend. I was lucky enough to see it, and then it was just gone like that Monday.
Yeah, Snowpiercer came to film scene here, and I wasn't able to. I had heard about it beforehand, and I heard how great it was, and I wasn't able to get to it, but I wish I had. But
Film Scene is, for those not in the know, is a local independent theater that I would highly recommend.
they actually just aired one of the movies we've done a podcast on, Easy Rider, and they had a couple of replicas at the theater of the motorcycles, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, I think Tucker and Dale versus Evil might have come out the same. It came out in 2010, which might have been the same year as Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods was 2011, I believe.
Okay, so this came out the year before. I don't know why it didn't. It kind of picked up traction like after it hit Netflix.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those cult movies like that.
Yeah. But I would say that it doesn't even deserve cult status. It should just be on everyone's shelf because it's so great. I also watched, there's a couple of guys that wrote A Quiet Place, and we're from Iowa, and they actually went to high school in Davenport. Actually, one of my friends knows these, or went to high school with these two guys.
And they're here with us tonight.
I wish. That'd be cool. But anyway, they wrote and directed a new movie called Haunt. And so I went to Film Scene to watch this one. They actually were at Film Scene this last Saturday. I didn't get to go to the screening, but they were there.
For a Q&A session?
Yeah, for a Q&A session after the movie.
So you go up there and go say, this is actually more of a comment than a question.
But I just went to just a screening on Tuesday night, and it is... I'll say it's bare bones, just you go in there. If you want a movie about psycho killers that's kind of gory, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was tense through the whole movie. There's not much to it other than they go into a haunted house and it's just psycho killers in there. Pretty straightforward. If that's what you want, it's a pretty solid movie. And then the final thing I watched these last couple weeks was Dragged Across Concrete.
That sounds painful.
I don't know if you're familiar. I think the director's name is S. Craig Zeller. Forgive me if I got this wrong, but he's the guy who wrote and directed Bone Tomahawk and Brawl and Cell Block 99.
I've heard of them.
Okay.
I've heard of those films.
Those two movies are like brutal to the point of hard to watch, especially Bone Tomahawk. This was not so much. This was Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn, who was also Vince Vaughn was also in the Cell Block 99 one. But Mel Gibson plays a cop who's close to retirement, but he's still just
He's
a
2
cop
weeks
on the
away from retirement.
He's getting too old for this shit.
Yes.
A cop who's still just a street cop and never got up in the ranks, and then he gets suspended because of excessive force, and he doesn't make enough money, and it's basically saying cops don't get paid enough for what they do. And then he gets a 2-week suspension, and his wife has MS, and his kid is getting harassed by local people, so he's like, I need money, so he decides he's going to go rob from the robbers.
Makes sense.
And then Vince Vaughn gets caught up in it. The nice thing is they're actually both portrayed as good cops that like don't want to do this. It's just like it's a last resort because you're not paying me to deal with these, and then I get a drug dealer off the street and you give me a 2-week suspension because I was too excessive. So, but it was a very slow paced movie, and yet I was never bored. I really enjoyed this one.
But did something or someone get dragged across concrete?
The funny thing is not really, no.
Well, that's disappointing.
I know, right?
0 stars.
And with that title, having watched his previous 2 films, I was totally expecting to see someone dragged across and see their face getting ripped off in the process. But that did not happen.
Well, what the heck?
So I would highly recommend it, though. I really liked that one. And I would also recommend Happy Death Day to You. And then obviously...
And a happy death day to you, too.
A happy death day to you. And obviously, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Go watch it.
I just hope they continue the series and call it Happy Death Day 3 Me.
Yeah, what are they going to do with the title for that one?
I think, well, it's obvious they got to at least get to 4, so it's Happy Death Day for all.
Oh,
then it's like the Happy and the Death Day. And then there's like Furious Death or...
Fastest and Furious or...
The Fate of the Death Day?
Death
I don't know.
to you. The happiest death day of all.
Happy Death Day in the Order of the Phoenix. Well, it's obviously Happy Death Day, Secret of the Ooze.
Go ninja, go ninja, go.
There better be Vanilla Ice. We're getting off topic. I suppose we should get to the film at hand here.
All right, Suspiria.
Roses are red, violets are blue, but the iris is the flower that will mean the end of it.
Scary music, pretty colors, scary music. 3 out of 5.
Written and directed by Dario Argento. Also, his girlfriend at the time, Daria Nicolodi.
Nickelodeon.
Also helped write it.
Definitely Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon? Daria Nickelodeon.
Yes.
Nick.
She started Nick at Night. That's her fame.
They had the idea of... she had a grandmother who apparently actually went to a music school or something like that. And
conservatory sort of situation.
Yeah, and apparently her grandmother ran away from this place because she says that they were practicing black magic. But then I read also that this story has also been debunked, so I don't know.
Well, by black magic, I think she accidentally meant to say Black Sabbath.
Yes, they were
Ozzy Osbourne
they were listening to Black Sabbath albums backwards.
I knew it. That actually turns into really happy country music.
And then Dario Argento also based it kind of on fairy tales, and then a guy by the name of Thomas de Quincey, he had a collection of short essays about psychological fantasy called Suspiria de Profundis.
Gesundheit.
And there's a piece in there called Lavana and Our Ladies of Sorrow, and that asserts that just like there's the 3 fates, the 3 witches, and there's 3 graces, there's he asserts that there's also 3 sorrows, and there are these witches that have this power over what the 3 cities that they're in or whatever. So
interesting.
So this actually became it was a movie trilogy. And the second movie, this one came out in 1977, and then Inferno came out in 1980. And then it took a couple decades, and he finally came out with the third one, Mother of Tears, in 2007. So the thing is I think that they maybe expand more on the witch plot in the other 2, because we'll get into it, but there's not a lot of plot in this movie.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about the other 2 because I haven't seen them. And
I have not either.
That's not necessarily high on my priority list at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch more Murder, She Wrote instead.
I've only actually seen, for a horror fan, I should watch more Dario just to see some of his earlier stuff, but I've only seen this, which I had seen before, and I've seen one of his more recent attempts called Dracula 3D or something like that with Rutger Hauer. And it's really, really, really bad.
May Rutger Hauer rest in peace.
Yes. But anyway, this one, what else do we have? Oh, the score is done by a group called Goblin, and they're credited as the Goblins in this movie. But this is one of my favorite scores of all time.
Yep. It's
just this creepy, kind of melodic, but then it also gets very intense, and he's got this whispering, which the singer has actually said that most of it is just gibberish.
Nice.
He's just whispering gibberish into the microphone. You just hear no, that's another score.
Right. I get confused sometimes.
But anyway, where does this movie start at?
Well, it starts where all places movies should start, the Munich airport.
It starts at the beginning.
Start at the very beginning.
We get a voiceover.
Which I think is a pretty good place to start.
We get a voiceover. Susie Banyan is going to school in Germany. That's about how he sounds, too.
Yes.
She's going to the school of ballet.
In the early 1960s, or in the early 1970s, we call it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, whatever. What if it was that guy?
I don't know.
Should be that guy. Or the guy from Forensic Files.
I mean, Robert Stack.
From Unsolved Mysteries?
Yes. Susie Banyan.
Actually, the Unsolved Mysteries theme does sound a little Suspiria, if you ask me.
It is. That's another one of my favorite themes, too. I loved Unsolved Mysteries. But anyway, back to the train. Susie Banyan gets off the train in Germany.
Thought it was a plane.
Was it a plane? I think she stepped off of it. She flew into Germany, and then she must have taken trains.
Or maybe there's like a tram. Anyway,
yeah, that could be. Maybe it was a tram.
All I know is the Munich airport, and I've flown out of there, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it looks exactly the same now as it did in 1977.
I'm sure. Why would you change it? And she walks out of the station into a thunderstorm to hail a taxi, and then we get into the taxi, and the music swells.
Yep.
So we're already getting like creepy score and the bright colors. He filtered everything. I was reading somewhere that he, instead of using just the gels that you use over the lights usually for filtering, he put like this cloth over so that he could put the lights right up close up to the actors and just flood the entire scene with the reds and the blues and
reds, blues, and greens. There's a lot of primary colors, so get out your color wheel from first grade, kids.
He actually based his coloring scheme off of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He had his cinematographer watch that movie actually to kind of work on the color scheme for this and the base colors and all that. I don't know exactly what he was going for off of that, but
what I do know, this was one of the last films filmed on a proper Technicolor camera. It's another good piece of trivia there. And Technicolor, they used the old school Technicolor process that was made famous in stuff like The Wizard of Oz.
And that I found conflicting information on. There's some places that say it wasn't actually filmed on the 3-strip camera. They did the 3-strip process after filming it. So, like, some places say that it was one of the last to be filmed on that camera. Regardless, it's still one of the last movies to use the 3-strip process for Technicolor. But
and that's kind of really what helps make the reds pop, especially with the Technicolor process.
Yeah. So she gets to the school, and she sees a girl running out of there, and the girl's screaming into the door, and then she runs away, and then she gets up to the door, and they won't let her in. And when she gets in the taxi again to leave, because she's like, well, I guess I can't go to school.
Absolutely drenched.
Movie's over.
Oh, man.
She sees the girl running through the woods, and then we hear the Goblin score again.
Yep.
I just love every time the Goblin score just comes up. I could just
inject that straight into your veins.
Yes. Just go to, I think you can find it on Spotify. Just go to Spotify and look up the score for Suspiria.
I'm sure you could buy it on vinyl.
It seems like a vinyl type thing. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm sure it's been around in vinyl in some way, shape, or form.
Then we cut back to the girl who ran away, and she's staying with a friend at the apartment. So she's leaving for good because weird stuff's going on at that school. And then her window blows open, and she sees eyes outside of her window. Dun, dun, dun. And then
it's Mac tonight.
Hand reaches in, grabs her head, and like kind of pulls her through the window, and she's screaming for help. Her friend can't get into the room, and she's running through. And we got this building that, like, you see, like, this big stained glass ceiling and just this tall entryway, and again, full of color. Like, you know, the stained glass, the walls are full of color. So even when he's not doing a filter, he's got sets that are just full of these bright, vibrant colors.
Most of this film was shot on sets. And then for the big red school, the front is a facade that was built for this film. And then the only few times where they were on location was when in Munich Square, which I've been to. And
I have not been into Europe before, so I don't know.
It's really nice. It's not as scary. Maybe it's the music. There wasn't any spooky music when I was playing there in the middle. I was there in the middle
You
of the
didn't
day.
walk around with your headphones on playing the Goblin score?
I should have.
Walk through that square and
Yep.
hope a dog doesn't attack you?
I certainly hope not.
So they're going through this building, and the killer stabs her and then gets her up to the roof. This is the Dario Argento cameo, because all you see of the killer is arms, and I think it's Dario's arms. So
I believe it.
And then he puts some sort of like cord around her neck and pushes her through the stained glass window, and she's hanging there. And that's right when she breaks through. That's right when her friend gets to the entryway, which the stained glass is above, and she gets stabbed in the face and then in the chest with like a piece of metal, and there's a glass like just like sticking straight into the middle of her face, which is pretty cool. And then we get to the next morning, and Susie goes back to the school. Some blind dude shows up at the school, and he ends up being the piano guy. And then we're introduced to Miss Tanner.
Yep.
Who's the teacher. She kind of shows Susie around, and police are there about the murder of the recent ex-student. Susie meets all the girls in the locker room, and you get a lot of like kind of girl like young girl banter in there, even though they're high school, like later
Italian man trying to make young girl banter.
Yeah, but like the thing is he wrote this movie for like 10 and 12-year-olds, but then it ended up being like late teenagers,
Which is probably for the best.
But he never changed a line of dialogue.
Nice.
So that's why you get kind of like this young innocent girl like kind of banter in the locker rooms and just in the dialogue in general. But yeah, they forced him to change it because they're like, you're killing off a bunch of like 10-year-olds.
What do you think you are, Stephen King?
I know, right? But his defense was, well, that's what makes it even scarier.
Fair enough.
But she gets roomed with a girl named Olga, and they talk about the girl who was murdered, and Susie recalls that what she was saying. She was saying something, screaming into the door, but she couldn't remember exactly what was being said. And then she's back at the school, and she's passing by one of the like cooks or whatever, and then the nephew of Miss Blanc, who runs the school.
And I assume the butler is played by Tim Curry.
Yes. And he did it with the lead pipe in the conservatory.
Yes.
No,
Flames! Flames!
Fire!
You gotta
burning.
you gotta do the hand signals when you do flames, when you say that line.
But she passes by the creepy kid and the creepy lady polishing stuff, and they just kind of like stare creepily at her.
As you do.
And then she hears just like from out of nowhere someone go, "Witch," and then she starts getting all woozy. Then they cut to them in the classroom. They're dancing, and this room is all yellow. She gets weak and has trouble dancing, and eventually faints. And she just has blood coming out of her mouth and nose.
Okay, so that means someone was trying to use her telekinetic powers to make her head explode. Scanner's rule.
Yes. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see cool explosion effects.
That's disappointing.
Of the head. Speaking of disappointing, Scanners is because, other than that scene, the movie's kind of like just kind of dull.
I like it. But yeah,
it gets a little crazy at the end, at least.
It was made on a relatively small budget, so you can only. But I've heard Scanners 2 is actually pretty good.
I'll have to check it out.
There's even a puppy.
She's back in her room, and doctor gives her a shot of something, and then she's moved into the school, and she's doing her hair one night, and then this is a scene where like maggots start falling from the ceiling, and
I want to get that checked out.
Everyone gets all crazy, and they find like rotted food in the attic. So
happens.
Whatever.
Maybe just food. Steve was living in there or something. No, the piano guy. That's where he lives, up in the attic. Him and his service dog.
Since there's maggots everywhere, everyone gets put into like the practice hall, and there's just curtains with like red lights shining behind them, so It's all red in there too. And while they're sleeping in there, they have this like old lady comes, and you see her image behind the curtain, and she's sitting there snoring and got this really raspy voice.
All right, so someone's grandma is there too.
Yeah. Grandma came to visit and
Grandma,
watch.
you snore. No, I don't.
She came to watch her granddaughter in the recital. And then we go to the next day, and Miss Tanner storms into the yellow room and yells at the piano player about his because he's blind, so he's got a seeing eye dog, and she's like, "Your dog attacked Madame Blanc's nephew," and she fired the piano player.
Oh man!
And he walks around at night, and
then the spooky music starts.
And
Goes into the town square all by himself. It's actually a really nice town square.
And then we hear another witch.
Yep.
And then the dog goes crazy and bites his neck off.
Oh man!
Bad dog. Meanwhile,
I think he's a good boy.
Meanwhile, Sarah and Susie are discussing.
He's just doing what the witch told him to. He's always a good boy.
He is.
He's the best boy.
Don't take a boy. Meanwhile, Sarah and Susie,
It'd be
Susie
much
and her.
funnier if that dog was actually like Scooby Doo. It was a German Shepherd, so it's close-ish to a Great Dane. So like, ruh, Raggy, it's a rich.
It's rich.
I'm gonna eat you, Raggy. 'Cause your neck looks like a hot dog.
I'll save you from the witches. If you're dead, you won't worry about them.
Exactly.
Susie has a new roommate, Sarah, and they're discussing like how the teachers all leave at night, but then Susie's all like, "Yeah, but the front door is to the left, and they're all walking to the right. They're staying in the building."
In the back door. Maybe there's like a wine bar underneath. Exit to the bar.
I think so.
It's like
it's
just like Cheers. There's a restaurant up top and Cheers is underneath.
Well, yeah. The teachers. It's a stressful day teaching these damn kids how to dance.
Gotta go back and see Sam and Norm.
And so then we get back to the locker room, and they're talking about the deaths, the girl's death, and then the blind man's death, and they're all like, "Oh my God, everybody who leaves here dies."
Oh no.
Oh no.
Guess you just can't leave then.
So I better not quit. Oh no. And Susie goes to Blanc about it, and she says, "I remember the girl saying something about secret and irises." And we find out Sarah, her new roommate, is scared because the girl who died, her name is Pat Hingle.
Pat Hingle.
Pat Hingle.
From Kentucky.
Her name was Pat Hingle.
Her name is Pat Hingle. Her name was Pat Hingle. What if this was like secretly like a Fight Club movie?
Dance club.
And Susie was the one doing all the killings.
It was her
wasn't
all along.
actually a witch. She was the witch.
She was the witch all along. Don't look at that witch behind the curtain.
The real witch was the friends we made along the way.
Pat had started taking notes about the weird things going on and gave it to Sarah, and then Sarah finds that the notes are gone.
I know.
And she can't wake up Susie because it seems Susie's been being drugged by the doctors because they've been like having her on this like bland diet, and they're like, "You have to eat this food." Mm-hmm. And so she keeps getting like all woozy or like really sleepy at night, like they're drugging
all sausage. Although, fun fact, if you eat a German sausage the local way, what they do is they put on like a little paper plate for you. They give you a piece of bread, but it's not a bun. You don't put it in the bun. Then you can ask for if you want like different kinds of mustard on it. So there's like a sweet mustard, a spicy mustard. So then you put the mustard on. So then you kind of take like a fork and a knife, cut off a piece of the sausage, dip it in the mustard, and then eat it.
Weird. That's a lot of process for just eating a piece of sausage.
It's pretty good.
Sounds good.
Had a lot of sausage when I was over there.
This is where we get to Sarah runs out of the room and goes into the attic, and because she's scared, and so why not run to the attic?
Makes sense.
Actually, I think she's following where the footsteps were going.
Okay.
So she's trying to find where that was, and she gets attacked up there and goes into some room. And then this building is like weird because she's in the attic, and then she goes into some closet in the attic, and there's a tiny window up top. So she stacks a bunch of boxes, and she climbs the boxes and climbs through the window, and she falls into another room that just has razor wire in all over the floor.
As it happens.
But it's just another room. I'm not like, it's weird that there's this tiny window at the top of the wall for these two adjoining rooms. But anyway, she falls into some razor wire, and then you see someone slit her throat too, because she can't get out of it. And apparently this was actually kind of painful because the actress says like they got it in one take, but it's not, they took all of the barbs off of the barbed wire or razor wire or whatever it was.
But it's still a hard wire.
But it's still hard wire, and she was getting tangled in it. And she said that when she got done, her body looked like it was bitten by like 1,000 ants. Like it was just like
red marks
all over her because she kept getting tangled up in it. Like
because it's almost supposed to feel like a spider's web. At least that's how I thought of it.
And as you're watching this, she's legitimately tangled up in that razor wire. So that could, because especially if you get tangled in something like that, it's going to start like really like tightening on you and kind of.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty intense scene to go through, honestly. But after she dies, Miss Tanner tells Susie that Sarah actually left the school, so they lie about that, and then Susie goes out and meets a friend of Sarah's, and he ends up being some psychiatrist, and this is where we get the exposition dump.
Yeah, it always felt kind of clunky.
Yeah, and we get him talking about like the witches, and he goes, "Oh, go talk to my friend Udo Kier over there." And
and by the way, this movie does have a plot. I'm just giving it to you now.
Yeah,
almost an hour in.
This dance studio was founded by like some sort of gypsy witch woman or something. I don't know, a Greek woman that
and she's still there.
That people thought was a witch, and I don't think people still think she's there. They just think that a witch founded the school.
Makes sense.
And then she sits there and talks about witches and magic, and he's like, well, if you kill the head witch, then all the other witches will die too. Okay.
It's
like
it's Lord of the Rings rules. You just gotta get rid of the ring, and then all the orcs die or whatever.
Yeah. One ring
Everyone knows that.
One ring to kill them all.
Yeah, it's a bit of a... I think they have at least a couple backups, but whatever.
Man, no backups.
Well, to be fair, he probably never thought he was going to get it cut off to begin with.
That's true. So she finds the exposition dump by Udo Kier.
Exposition dump by Udo Kier sounds like the name of a book.
I want to read that book. I want it to be written by Udo Kier. And she goes back to the school, and it turns out everybody left without her to go see the Bolshoi ballet.
Well, that's no fun. I wanted to go see that.
That was rude of them to like just leave. And she figures out that the wine and the food that they've been giving her must be poisoned, so she dumps it all, and then she goes around and a bat flies into her. Like, why? I don't know. They decided to have a bat fly in, and she killed that. She threw a towel over it. Yes. She, we talked about that in another podcast. You know what it was? I said that I thought it was rubber bat. It wasn't a rubber bat. It was the fact that he didn't know it was real.
Yeah, he did not know.
He thought it was a rubber bat.
Yes, but it was a real dead bat.
Yeah. So because the whole controversy was, oh, Ozzy Osbourne like did this on purpose. Like he's like a psycho, crazy dude that's gonna bite heads off of bats. He's like, no, I thought someone threw a rubber bat off, so I was just playing along.
To be fair,
he is kind of a crazy psycho.
Drugs.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it was kind of crazy in the 70s, and but anyway, she kills a bat.
There's a great article where they actually find the guy who took the bat to the concert, and like him and his couple of buddies. So,
like, dude, that was awesome.
They do track them down. It's like, yeah, but then now you can buy like an Ozzy Osbourne branded toy bat with a detachable head. So
they're like, I gave Ozzy rabies. Yeah. She kills the bat, and then she goes to find where the teachers are. Like I said, the bat like was just like something else to kill.
She's gonna become Batwoman or something. I don't know.
And she uses Sarah's notes because she was counting the footsteps, like every direction they went, how many footsteps it was. And she ends up in Blanc's office.
And uses her invisibility cloak to get there, to the restricted section.
Yes. And they never get caught. And she sees an iris in the mirror because there's all sorts of mirrors in this, like reflections and stuff. So I don't know if that was supposed to theme he was going for here.
Or just, hey, mirrors look cool.
Yeah. And so then she's like, she said secrets and irises. There's an iris on the wall. Must be a secret passage.
Exactly. So then she lays down a bomb by the crack in the wall, and there's a treasure chest underneath, and that's where she gets the map.
And she gets a piece of the the
The
Triforce.
She gets the Triforce of Courage.
Yes. She finds Blanc in there. They didn't go to the Bolshoi. They lied.
Oh, no.
Blanc is in there telling everyone, we must kill the American. We hate Americans. So they want to kill her, and she finds Sarah's dead body, and she sneaks away and finds... Helena Marcos is the name of the witch that founded the school, or the supposed witch. And she
The
actually...
Vavitch.
The Vavitch.
The Vavitch.
And she finds the Vavitch. It's the old woman who was down in the snoring in the room, and she's like, "Oh, old witch." Which I don't know if this is true, but I really hope it is. I read somewhere that Jessica Harper, who plays Susie, said that the old witch is actually played by a 90-year-old ex-stripper or prostitute that Dario Argento found out in the street, and she's uncredited in the movie.
Just give her a paycheck at least.
I was like, that's awesome. But she's like, oh, it's the main witch because she's old and wrinkly and gross. And the old witch reanimates her friend Sarah's body, and she's coming after her, and
with a knife.
And the witch stole the cloak from her because she went invisible.
She's almost just taking the invisibility cloak.
And then we see lightning flashing in the window, and she sees the outline of the witch. She's still on the bed.
The witch does not pass her stealth check.
She doesn't.
And then the GM rolls Susie rolls a nat 20.
And stabs her in the neck. With there's this like weird, what was it, like a peacock statue, and like all these pins made up the tail feathers.
Something like that.
And she grabbed one of those and stabs her in the neck. And there's it's I don't know if it's a nod to his first movie, something about the crystal plumage or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, she stabs the witch in the neck, and then she runs out of the room because the dead Sarah falls away, and then she's running out of the room, and the building starts collapsing, and all the other witches are dying, and
then there's a boulder coming after her. She grabbed the golden idol,
and then she gets on a plane, and snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Yes.
And then the building blows up behind her, and scene. So I mean, just there's witches in a school, and she found them and killed the head witch, the head Vavitch.
The head Vavitch.
And yeah, so like not much of a plot.
And I think the word fairy tale is kind of key. It's definitely more of kind of about mood, atmosphere, and the spectacle.
It's like a Hansel and Gretel.
It does, but then it has the colors of like a Hammer horror film of the 60s. Yeah.
And the thing is with the whole plot of it, nothing gets explained like why they're killing the kids, and because they don't say that they do anything with them.
Why does the witch want to eat Hansel and Gretel?
I don't know. Maybe to increase her power. I guess maybe that's
increase her power levels. She can go Super Saiyan. I like to imagine she's going to spend the rest of it screaming, just like.
But I don't know. So it's basically just weird stuff happening in a school, and she finds out it's witches.
Yep.
So not much plot wise.
Them witches. I still think this movie would definitely benefit from like a midnight screening with an audience.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
It's very different watching this on your laptop while you're doing the dishes.
But what'd you think overall?
People remember this movie for a good reason. It's visually it's very interesting, and it's got a heck of a soundtrack. Yeah,
and I think that's what I'd say too is, despite not having much plot, and it's not even really a great movie because the dialogue also, the voiceover work they do is pretty bad. And
I mean, that's very common for Italian cinema, especially that era. Everything was just dubbed.
And one funny thing is that I learned was this movie, there were Jessica Harper's American, and he actually found her. He decided to hire her after seeing her in Phantom of the Paradise.
Nice.
So
I was not expecting Phantom of the Paradise to come up today.
But so she's American. There might be another American in the movie, and then there's Italians and there's Germans, and everyone knew what the other lines were supposed to be well enough so they could talk, like they could respond, but everyone was speaking in their own language. So like people actually didn't actually know what they were saying, and then they just dubbed it all in English afterwards.
Yep.
So she said it was a weird experience because, you're doing your lines and you're saying it in English and they're saying it back in German or Italian. You don't know what they're actually saying, but you know what they're supposed to be saying. So you can still respond to it. I found that kind of interesting. That'd be an interesting way to make a movie there.
I know that was also pretty common, and that Sergio Leone would do the same thing on his westerns.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'd be working with actors of different nationalities. Obviously, Clint Eastwood's American, and then some of the other people would either be Italian or German.
And another fun thing that Dario Argento apparently did was he would actually blare the Goblin score on set to unnerve all the actors.
Nice.
While they're filming, or before takes and all that stuff. So I thought that was great. But overall, I really enjoy watching this movie, mostly because of the score and the visual. And
there is not a lot of other horror movies that look anything like it. It's especially just because of very heavily saturated colors.
Yeah.
And just very bright colors. Very big contrasting colors with the reds and the blues especially. So there really isn't much like it at all.
And there is a remake from 2018, and there was some quote from Dario Argento. He was not fond of a remake being done because he goes, well, if they do the story different so that it's a different movie, then it's a different movie, then why call it Suspiria? And if they do it like mine, which the only way to do Suspiria is to do it the way I did it, if you do that, then you're just remaking the movie.
It's a shot-for-shot remake.
Then why do it? So,
and you said you saw the 2018 Suspiria?
I did, and they really did. They just took all the color out of it, and the story did change, and they tried to put some metaphor in there about, I don't even know
more
what.
sex scenes.
It was just so slow and dull, and
it's just like 2 hours and 2.5 hours.
And you feel all 2 hours of it. But this one's just fun to watch because of the score and like the fun gore effects. I see a lot of things about it. Like, this is one of the scariest movies ever, and I know that you take that with a grain of salt because of when it was made. But even for the 70s, I'm going, this is pretty cheesy.
But I think the score and the visuals
that really
in
helps.
A dark theater at night, I think would really make it a lot. So if there was a situation I think if you could catch this film in theaters, like if it's like being reshown somewhere.
If Film Scene ever did it for Late Shift at the Grindhouse, that would be great.
Yeah, so if you could do it at like sort of a late night showing, just maybe in October if you're lucky.
Yeah.
I think I would definitely oh yeah, they're showing Suspiria tonight. I'd probably go.
Yeah. And this is one movie where you want to watch it on the biggest screen in your house with a good sound system.
Oh, yeah.
So
enjoy that goblin.
Enjoy the goblin.
So many goblins.
So recommendation? Yeah, for horror fans, I would definitely recommend it.
Yep. Recommend, once again, if you can, as big a screen as possible. I've watched it twice on a laptop, both times. So, not the same experience.
No. What do you got for any sort of double feature for this?
You go first.
Okay. I didn't, like I said earlier, I was sick for a week, so I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. Well, I probably had a lot of time to think about this, but my head
your brain wasn't there? Brain?
My brain was in a dense fog for a week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with something that, this is one that you don't want to watch with your kids unless they're kind of messed up kids. But, unless you want to mess them up. I'm going to go with a more kid-friendly version of kids find out that some place has witches and they have to stop them. I'm going to go with The Witches from 1990. Angelica Houston, based off the Roald Dahl book, where a family goes on vacation and I think they have a young boy. I haven't seen this since the 90s, but I remember it being good.
I've seen some of the makeup effects on the witches. It's like, wow, it's traumatizing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that this is one that is a family movie, but you still got to watch like how much your kid can handle, because it was pretty intense for a kid's movie. They find out that the hotel they're in, the kids find out that there's a witch convention, and all the witches start turning the kids into mice. And so then they have to figure out how to stop them. So, and it's based off a Roald Dahl book, and it was a good adaptation. It was a fun adaptation, and I'm a fan of Roald Dahl, so anytime you can get any sort of story from him on the big screen.
Yeah, Roald Dahl had a famous quote. It says, "Children like to be scared." So he was pretty good at that.
Yes. His books can be terrifying for children.
Especially if you get like the Penguin Illustrated Edition with all the illustrations by Sir Quentin Blake, who is known for his kind of very pencily, scratchy illustrations.
Yeah, and I think we have a few of those books up on the bookshelf.
I had a few of them. A lot of people had a few of them around.
Yeah. So, do you have a recommendation?
Well, let's see. If you want to focus on, good music and bright colors, I guess you could just watch another Dario Argento movie.
Yeah, and I would recommend his earlier career. Like, the last 2 decades have not been, his movies have not been as good from what I've heard, and I did see Dracula, and it was really, really bad.
But how is the 3D?
I didn't actually see it. I think it's called Dracula 3D. I don't even know. I just watched it on a regular screen. But, yeah, not good. But he gets a lot of praise for some of his earlier stuff, like Deep Red, and Inferno, the sequel to this. So, yeah.
Or an alternate take, I guess, if you want to have colors and music, another one you could take would be through the Francis Ford Coppola film Bram Stoker's Dracula. That has some amazing, it's a very pretty movie, and it's just pretty good music too, and it's got Gary Oldman playing Dracula.
Nice. I still don't think I've actually seen that full version.
It's solid.
That's the one you said, Keanu Reeves, right?
Keanu Reeves and
young
Ryder.
And young Kirsten Dunst was the Interview with the Vampire, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tom Cruise.
And Brad Pitt. Okay, so that was Suspiria.
I guess we'll see you next time, but first we gotta spin.
And I lost my phone.
Come on, Kyle. We'll cut this part out later.
Okay, because I'm going to go get my phone.
Okay. Kyle, you just missed it. I did a full Shakespearean rendition of the To Be or Not To Be monologue, and some of the best voice work I've ever done.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I'm back. And with the magic of editing, that was like 2 seconds.
But was it 2 seconds for me?
We got 70% or better. We'll just go all genres again.
Sure, let's see what pops up.
Spin it to win it. All right. First, what's this on? It's on Prime Video and Canopy and Tubi TV.
Oh boy, you got
all sorts of choices there to watch it on. Esther Blodgett is just another starry-eyed farm kid trying to break into the movies. Waitressing at a Hollywood party, she catches the eye of alcoholic star Norman Maine, is given a test and is caught up in the Hollywood glamour machine, ruthlessly satirized. She and her idol Norman marry, but his career abruptly dwindles to nothing.
Yes. It's the classic Hollywood story of all Hollywood stories.
A Star is Born.
Yes. Starring Lady Gaga.
Not quite.
Starring Barbra Streisand.
Not quite.
Starring Judy Garland.
Not quite. We're going back to the first one.
I have seen this film before, so we'll
starring
talk about it then.
Janet Gaynor and Frederick March. 100% on Rotten Tomatoes from 1937. Again, you can watch that on Prime Video, Canopy, Tubi, and Fandor if you have that, which that's not one of our streaming services. But so, in the meantime, you can find us on Twitter at AwesomeKM.
And at Noah_Saturn. Until then, I'm a Vitch.
Until then, don't go to music school. They're all run by
the
Vavitches.
Vavitch.